Magic Mage here from server 243, and we're just about ready to enter into our Frostborn Legion Wars. And as we're approaching this time frame, this is normally when I get questions from individuals within my alliance, and I see other individuals in other servers start thinking about, what am I going to do next? Am I going to stay with my server? Am I going to migrate to a different server? Am I going to repeat a season I've already done? And these questions aren't easy to answer. A lot of times the best advice is what's good for you at this point in your time and where you're at. But I feel like this is a conversation that should be had, especially in light with some of the questions that were developed for our developers and our representatives to bring to our developers. And there was two things that really stood out to me. The first thing that stood out is the idea of retention. And I firmly believe retention is not just up to the developer of the game, but it's all up to the community as well. And how we do that and what decisions we make really can impact how the game is played. And what do I mean by that? Well, that brings me to the second concept. A lot of individuals feel they're not strong enough or not ready to go into conquest. And I gotta admit, there's been times where I've said, you know what, I'm not there yet. But then I had to stop and think. And this is where I started to think along the lines. We're telling ourselves that we're not ready to go to conquest because those individuals who've been there for almost 3 years are stronger than us. And they are. But I also have observed while being in server 211 that there's different tiers within conquest. The other thing I want to make everyone stop and pause, or at least think about, is we're saying we're not strong enough to compete in conquest. And we're provided the option with our portals and collecting portals to be able to repeat seasons in these lower servers. And these are the portals I'm referring to. But what about the new players entering the game? The individual who has never played, entering into that preparation zone, or season 1, or moving into season 2. Those players who have never had a chance to repeat seasons are technically facing other lords that has the same gap as those individuals who are jumping back that would have had if they went into conquest. So while they're saying they're not strong enough to go to conquest, we have a whole group of players entering into our game with the same gap and no opportunity to grow as some of our initial players had, who are now repeating season 2 and 3, or possibly repeating season 1. So before you stop and think, well, I'm not strong enough, let's first look at, we want other players to join our community, and we want them to feel like they're strong enough too. So that's the first thing I want to really make sure we're stopping and thinking about. As a community, if we really want our game to grow, we need more individuals to come in to play the game, but we want them to feel like what we felt like when we first entered this game, that they can learn, grow, develop, and actually have a chance to succeed without facing someone with an account that might be 2 or 3 years old. Now, some individuals say, well, yes, you've been playing this game for 1.5 years, you might be ready for conquest. But I want to share with you what my main account looks like that I'm bringing into conquest. So when we pull up my main account, you'll notice I am not at any account that has a level 4 400 March. The only dragon I have where I can even access the dragon tree is the Lightning Immortal Tyrannus. Now, within my dragon tree, you'll notice that I really haven't even gotten far in the progression. I have been able to unlock up to level 3 Lightning Streak. I'm working on unlocking Lightning Cage level 3, and I'm still developing the pathway to get to each of these key milestone markers. You'll see that I have a couple unlocked all the way through to the flat rate of 90 in terms of the values, and those are denoted by the diamond with the circle and the square around it. The first unlocked level is that diamond with the circle, and I have a majority of mine at that first unlocked level, with the exclusion of a couple of these accuracy ones have unlocked at level 2, which is that diamond with the circle in the center. And then also some resilience rate as well to help combat some of the immortals I was facing and marches I was facing with extreme attack and crit rate values. So I was focusing on some of those essentially at the beginning. I also have unlocked level 2 claws. I can go up to 5%, so I have 3 more levels there. Same thing with armor. I've got that one unlocked to level 2. But you'll also notice that with each of these levels, I do need dragon essences, and I have 102, which is a good chunk, but I also know it's not going to be substantial enough to complete my dragon tree. So as I continue through this dragon tree, I'm going to need to obtain the dragon essence as well through primarily where I've been getting is actually the Time Rift Breaker shop, because it really has been the best deal for me to obtain that dragon essence. So I've really been actually focusing on purchasing the dragon essence each time a new Rift Breaker is unleashed to kind of build upon that for myself. There's other ways you can obtain it. At this point, I am not in Conquest, so I can't access it through Open Arena, and we can get it through like the shop through Throne of Supreme, but I find the shop with the Time Rift Spider is really the most valuable. Like I said, you can get it through Throne of Supreme. I normally will unlock that towards the end of our grand final regional match as well. So as I have explained, while I am strong enough to compete in games like Throne of Supreme, I am not the strongest member in my server. If I go to my rankings, you'll notice that in terms of strongest troop power, I'm actually at like 24. So there's a lot of individuals who are much stronger than I am within the rankings for overall strength for my march. You'll also notice that my march still isn't completely developed in terms of skills. If I go to my immortals, you'll notice that this one here is still at level 7. I have a couple others. Yeah, all the others here are at level 8 for the skills I'm currently utilizing in my main march. And I did focus on these 12 skills originally. However, with the progression of allowing a third and a fourth march to be competing in the arenas, I did wind up starting to create a second march. Now, the second march really doesn't have the best skills. There's some skills I tried out on my main march that I decided not to utilize, or that I had purchased for some of the support mortals to help me with like the spider and bosses, and so the skills aren't the best. Now, you'll say, why do I have weakness on Alexander? It doesn't make sense. And there's a couple of reasons why weakness is there. One, it's actually one of my stronger skills I have, and I can only place one aura on an immortal. So because of that, I do have an aura of weakness on Alexander because I didn't like it on Himiko, because I felt these skills were better suited for Himiko and keeping them on her. I had already a Berserk, which I had on Charles, and I had Coercion on Zenobia, which is also in her aura. Now, I did at one point actually try Berserk on Alexander, and Charles had weakness, but I actually found reversing them worked better. So I wound up putting Berserk on Charles the Great. Again, these are not my end skills. They're probably not even going to be the skills I wind up as I progress and collect a few more soul crystals. But right now, I need a lot more soul crystals to really change out these skills and get these skills to where I want. You'll notice even in Zenobia, I just don't have the right skills. There's really just placement holders for what pseudo worked in terms of giving me a little bit of balance. One of the reasons why I do actually have weakness on this team is because it does help me level out the playing field a little bit by reducing the resilience rate of my enemy team. I don't even have really strong skills set for any of my marches. I do have a couple on Hammerby. He actually had in my main march, couldn't get the negative effects up to where they needed to be. So I actually pulled him back and put YSG back in because I was having better luck with him in my battles and even in terms of things like gnomes and bosses. So he stepped back. I'm going to wait until I can access a couple of immortals and conquest where I believe I should be able to increase his damage to make him viable. But I really don't have a lot of skills that I can use. I don't have all the immortals developed. I did start developing Elsa just in case I wanted to be able to change him out for some of those hybrid marches, because Elsa really, while situational is good against hybrid, that's really where I've seen him excel. In marches where he's not facing hybrid, I've normally actually been able to defeat using my Peter. So I've kept Peter as my primary immortal. Also, I'm slightly nostalgic about Peter because he was one of my first epic immortals I obtained. So I kind of have a hard time detaching from Peter because of that as well. Although his synergy with my main march and secondary marches isn't great because he's a spearman and my other marches at this point don't have spearmen in them. So why am I ready to go to conquest when it's clearly evident I'm really not the top of rankings of everything? And like even in the arena, you'll notice I kind of balance between 13 and 14. My rankings pretty much are consistent for my own individual growth. And that comes to really the server in 2.11 and what I was able to learn from playing in 2.11. So over the last couple of months, I have been playing in 2.11. I've moved one of my farm accounts from 2.14 to 2.11 as part of that open migration project, where it allowed different members within servers that weren't active to move to one on the cusp of being active to help revitalize it and kind of breathe life back into it and allow players who wanted to play to conjugate into a single group and allow them those opportunities. And it's worked fairly well for 2.11. However, I do believe at this point, probably the core group that was in 2.11 is still that core group that's keeping it alive. If we go to our alliance, you'll notice that really our leaders who are really experienced and are active have continued to grow and develop. They're probably the strongest individuals on our server. There are a couple of others that are fairly strong within the server. Some have reached level 55, but for the most part, it's a very diversified group. I think this is another one of our stronger players, yes. But you'll also notice that there are some players that are really not as strong as in that initial group here. So some of them are actually smaller than the farms we have in my main account currently in season 3. And what was really nice that I experienced was during our first KVK or Frostborn Wars, when we competed against a server of like size. It's the same again this time. However, I believe 117, who is in that top like bright purple color, is a little stronger, or they have just a little bit more membership to help them advance, as they have been able to capture cities a little bit quicker than us and move into the second zone, and we haven't yet been able to do that. But for the most part, one nice thing about Conquest is you are matched again with 8 servers, where in the lower seasons right now we're only being matched against 4. So if there's certain servers that are not active, there's more of a chance to find some active players, which really makes KVK or the Frostborn Wars a lot of fun and allows you to accomplish some of those chronicles that are very difficult to accomplish if you're the only server within your bracket that's active. So that's one really nice thing, is you do have the opportunity to be facing multiple servers, and they really are paired with like size alliances, which is beneficial. And what I mean by that is, if you look at my alliance here, currently we're actually in the green alliance. If we look at relative powers here, they're pretty consistent to who we are matched up against. So we really are going against like-sized servers that we're competing with, and that has been extremely advantageous for us when we're going into these Frostborn wars, because even when we do come up against each other in battle, we have the capacity to actually still even engage in those battles and have opportunities to potentially win. The other thing that I've noticed is, while playing even in the Throne of Supreme, with my very tiny account, I almost made it actually into the top 64. I was kind of hovering around 50 and 84 depending upon when I played, and the last couple of battles I accidentally forgot to actually engage in some of the tickets, and so I actually dropped below being able to enter into the top 64. But when we look at these battles here, even these battles are against players, they're actually significantly smaller than us, but there are some that have about like size to us as well. So you'll notice that our overall strength is actually dictating the servers we're going into the Throne of Supreme with as well. And these battles are with members that are not what you would see on server 205 or 170 or 68 or even 45. They're really like-sized battles. Some of them are actually smaller than some accounts that I've seen in Season 1 and Season 2 and even Season 3. So you'll see that, well, we do have some that are at a C8. Now remember, they've been in Conquest for quite some time, almost about a year now. So they've had a chance to actually develop their accounts further than what I would be entering right into Conquest. But it does give me that hope and that opportunity that I can believe and see that I have that chance to really develop my account and succeed in Conquest, and know that I can continue playing and enjoy playing without feeling like I am going to be competing against someone with a really large march that just gives me no opportunity. So I hope this helps you too when you're making that decision to either stay, migrate, move into Conquest, or even if you have not enough portals and see yourself needing to move forward, that there are opportunities to continue to grow and play. And hopefully, if enough of us continue to progress forward and move forward, not only does it open up the opportunities for those new members entering into our game to discover how the game is played and compete and feel like they can be successful, but also hopefully continue to progress forward as well. So we are constantly bringing new members in, new ideas, new marches, and new philosophies. Thank you for watching. I hope this aided you in your next decision on where you're going. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Please remember to like and subscribe if you liked the content so you do not miss anything in the future.